Where do I do it?
Upper right-hand
Yeah.
Okay, you're back to being the presenter.
Okay. I don't see it.
Lose the thing.
This thing here?
Yeah, lose it.
No, I'm
Unmuted.
Okay.
All right, you're gone. You're on.
Okay.
No, I did that because although it's really quiet right now, so
Yeah.
this is Lynette Bennett, and I'm the president of Collegiate College Advisors, and we have about half the people on. So I know we're going to still have people coming on, and so I didn't really want it to interrupt the presentation. We are recording the presentation, and we are going to get started, but I muted everyone except myself and Ted, and when I quit talking, I'm going to mute myself. But if you have questions, can you please just type them in the chat box? Now, Ted, this is the first time we've done this where we have given the control over to one of our speakers. So, Ted, can you see the chat in the chat box?
It's bottom right
Bottom right.
of the screen.
Type message here. Welcome to this Collegiate College.
Yeah, there you go. So I'll try to, if I see questions, if somebody has a question, you're welcome to put it in there. And what we'll try to do is get to as many questions as possible. If Ted sees them, he'll answer them. Otherwise, we'll have a question and answer period at the end. So I want to just take a second and introduce Ted. I want to say, first of all, thank you for running this webinar and agreeing to do the webinar with us. I think this that you're going to talk about something that's really timely and that a lot of parents appreciate. We had the best registration we've ever had for a webinar this evening. So you are a licensed social worker, master's in social work, and the director of the Boys Work Project, a therapist in private practice who successfully specialized really in working with boys and their families in the community for over 30 years. So he's conducted training groups with boys and consulted with schools in developing boy-friendly education programs, supervised their staff, and trained their boys. He's had a lot of experience. He's worked with a lot of different groups. He's the author of How Boys Become Men, From Dragon Spirit to Courageous Heart, and the developer of a parent training DVD program, Dragon Tamer, from boys to young men. So he's going to speak this evening. At the end, I'm going to speak for maybe 5 minutes, and he's going to have the whole rest of the hour. All right, thank you, Ted. It's your turn.
All right, thank you very much, Lynette. Hi, everybody. I'm Ted Browdy. I'm enjoying doing this. The first time I've done it, you should talk to me. And when I speak with folks publicly, I start by saying that I'm an expert on boys. I work with boys, all kinds of sizes. Little boys, medium-sized boys, teenage, young adults, all the way across the age span. I work with boys.
Ted, I just want to tell you, Ted, we're getting quite a delay. We can't hear you well.
Sorry. Lynette, I can't hear you at all, dear.
Oh. I said we're getting quite a delay from you, and it's sounding all mumbled.
You're getting quite a delay from me. Then let me yell for John because this is all technical, and I don't have the what I'm doing.
This part seems just slightly better.
So if I talk slower, maybe it'll work better. So I'll start again. I'm Ted Browdy, and I'm an expert on boys. And I work with boys all the way across the age span, their families, and the community, as Lynette said. Little boys, medium-sized boys, great big boys, all boys across the age span. And I can talk about boys nonstop for months. Tonight I'm going to introduce you to a few of the areas that I focus on when I first meet parents. Knowledge of the beast, which is my understanding of the world of teenage boys. The dynamics of power, conflict, and love, which I've come to understand is the foundation for everything in terms of what's going on with boys and teenage boys and for how things to change, and their roles in boys developing into young men. And then finally, the realm of purpose, mission, and dreams, which is the heart of a boy becoming the man he was born to become. All with the idea of getting you started on the road of becoming a more effective parent or adult in their lives. So briefly, in addition to my credentials in terms of my education, which was very good, but there was no specific training for working with boys. So I explained to people I have 3 boy credentials. The first is I'm a boy. I'm the middle son. I have an older brother, a younger brother. I grew up in a family of boys. My mother had to deal with all 4 of us. My second boy credential is I'm a musician. I've been playing music either as an amateur, professional, on and off since I was 6 years old. When I was a teenager, I was in a working band. I grew up in a community that produced some extremely successful musicians in a number of different genres. I play a number of instruments, and it's important because boys are either playing music as instruments or they're all listening to music. And as you might imagine, when a boy comes to see me at the office, he may not be real excited about seeing a shrink, but I can enter into his world through the music he's listening to without fail. And my third boy credential is I'm a 2nd-degree black belt in the Japanese martial art Aikido. And like being a musician, the black belt carries a degree of respect that the licensed as a psychologist and the social worker don't necessarily have. But in addition to that, Aikido is a very unusual martial art. It's one of only 2 martial arts that I know of where it's entirely self-defense. There are no offensive techniques whatsoever. So my training in Aikido for many, many years has helped me to understand what's going on with boys, what's going on with boys and their families, what's going on with boys in their communities, because boys are always engaging in conflict. And in Aikido in particular, you learn a great deal about what conflict is, how to enter into it, and especially how to resolve it in a way so that it works well for everybody. So those are my boy credentials. Now I want to begin with knowledge of the beast. My understanding over many years of the world of a teenage boy. This is not material that I acquired from a textbook. This is material I acquired from living experience with boys. The first thing is that boys are bored. I'm assuming that if I asked you, do your boys ever say you're bored, many if not all of you would say yes. And he's telling you the truth. And for a very long time in giving presentations like this, I treated the fact that the boys are bored kind of lightly as if it was kind of a joke. And over many years, the boys have made me come to understand how serious it is that in fact they are very bored. I'm going to give you 2 areas that they talk to me about in terms of boredom. The first is they're bored with school. What this means is that they've been going to school since they were little kids. And physically, they've been doing fundamentally the same things, coming in, sitting down, book work, paperwork, worksheets, expected to raise their hand and so on. And even though the content, the material becomes more difficult and challenging, behaviorally, they are being expected to do and be the same thing. And the fact is, once they come into adolescence, early adolescence, they're developmentally ready to be doing something new and different, and that's not occurring for them. And the result is they're bored. There's a similar theme in terms of family. The boys have lived in their family, even with changes. They've lived in their families their whole lives, and they have learned the patterns, learned the personalities, learned the relationships of everybody involved. And once he's learned them and is really comfortable with all those patterns, meaning comfortable that he knows them inside and out, he becomes bored. There's many other areas, but those are 2 of the most important about boys being bored. The second one is teenage boys are afraid. Now, it's about the last thing that a teenage boy is going to admit to, because they want to come off as being together and strong. But the fact of the matter is, they've let me know that in fact they are afraid. What are they afraid of? Lots of things, but I'm only going to give you 2, 3, or 4 right now. First is very simple. They don't have a clue as to who they are, and they're afraid because they don't know who they are. They're not supposed to know who they are because this is a period of developing strength and identity. But that doesn't change that they are afraid. They're afraid of one another. They're afraid of girls. Why are they afraid of girls? Because girls have feelings. Girls express their feelings differently than the boys do. And it unnerves them because the boys have feelings, but they experience it bodily and verbally in very different ways. Two more areas I want to tell you about. Boys are afraid of growing up and becoming men. I've had a 13-year-old tell me one time that he thought being 17 was the perfect age. That's where he wanted to stop. That was it. And he wanted to stop there because he'd have a driver's license. He would be, in his eyes, independent, but he wouldn't have to have any responsibility. In his words, having responsibility was terrible. The boys, in being afraid to grow up and become men, look at what they see, and two things occurs to them. In many cases, they think, how am I ever going to do that? How am I ever going to be successful like that? And they also look at men, in some ways see the opposite, like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to, that's no fun. I don't want to do that. The last thing I want to tell you about being afraid is that teenage boys are afraid of having more emotional power than their parents. More emotional power than their parents. Now, it may not look like this, but in fact, it goes like this. When they can provoke an emotional reaction out of their parents or any other adult, part of them goes, yes, it's a celebration. And part of them goes, oh my God. And the oh my God part is, they look at the adults for modeling. And when they see an adult, parent, teacher, doesn't matter, emotionally reacting, essentially being no more mature than they are, they go, great, this is as far as I go, now what? I've had boy after boy after boy tell me this. The third thing I want you to know about teenage boys is that they need their parents. What they need is different from what they needed as little boys. And even though they often act like, I don't need you at all. If you just leave me alone and let me live my life, everything would be fine. It's simply not true. They are no more ready to be independent, live on their own, and run their own lives than I am to go to Jupiter. They'll act as if they don't need their parents. And it's just simply not true. But I want to repeat, what they need is very, very different from what they needed when they were little. Teenage boys crave challenge and responsibility that's real and meaningful to them. So I'm not just talking about picking up his clothes and emptying the dishwasher and bringing up the garbage cans, although those are all extremely important. I'm the first person to believe and to stand by, as a boy gets older, he should become more capable of taking on responsibility of running a home, for the very simple reason that we're intending to prepare him to be an adult in the real world, and those are things that have to happen. But what I'm referring to is challenge and responsibility that's real and meaningful to him is something that from his insides out he craves and he wants to try and do. For example, I'll give you a simple example. A 13-year-old boy I saw a number of years ago, and he had gotten into a lot of trouble both at school and he'd gotten in some legal trouble. So he had community service as part of his probation for his legal trouble. And his probation community service was working in a home for older folks. And he didn't have the status job. He wasn't the doc with the white coat. He had the jobs like bedpans and delivering food and getting dirty laundry and things like that. And he very casually mentioned to me, I'd much rather be at the home than be at school. And I immediately asked him to tell me more. He said, well, I'm at school, I'm in trouble, I'm doing poorly, I'm the butt of everyone's jokes, and I'm annoying everybody. When I'm at the home, I'm appreciated. I'm doing something of service and of good. People respect it, and as I said, they appreciate it. Teenage boys crave challenge and responsibility that's real and meaningful to them because they really are developmentally ready for something new and different to take place. And when they find that that's not happening, then they resort to all kinds of other things. Teenage boys are agents of change. Now, this often just mystifies adults because it looks like he's not interested in changing anything. The fact is that he demonstrates being an agent of change through his behavior, and his behavior is really a form of code. It's not direct, it's not straightforward, that's not how boys tend to be. How is he an agent of change? Well, one of the ways that boys often do it is by behaving or defining himself by what he's not. I'm not like my mother, I'm not like my father, I'm not goth, I'm not punk, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not. And in his defining himself by what he's not, he's trying to formulate for himself a change in terms of who he is without clarifying it. The second way the boy is an agent of change is through generating conflict and friction. He's communicating, as I said, in code that he's looking for a change to take place. Unfortunately, that method of communicating is never going to result, I shouldn't say never, generally is not going to result in a change taking place because the code is not going to be understood, it's going to be misunderstood, and the usual outcome is the friction and the conflict creates more of what is seen as the problem instead of more of the change that's being called for. Excuse me for a minute. Teenage boys love buttons, all kinds of buttons. The buttons on their phone, the buttons on their video game consoles, the buttons on televisions, any kind of button teenage boys love. And they especially love the buttons that grown-ups have because they love to push that button and watch the reaction that's going to happen. It drives adults absolutely crazy. But it doesn't change the fact that the world of a teenage boy, he loves buttons, and if he sees a button, he knows it there, he is going to push it. For teenage boys, everything is a game. That's because he's a boy. And for boys, everything is about play, and everything's about strength. So when he's living his life, there is a game element for him all the time. And being a boy that has not matured yet into a young man, the game in his world is always defined by winning and by losing. Winning and losing. And he always wants to win and never wants to lose. In fact, the last thing I want you to know about a teenage boy is he will avoid losing at all cost. So that's the world of a teenage boy. That's what I understand to be knowledge of the beast. I want to shift my attention now to power, conflict, and love. Because it rules everything. For a teenage boy, everything's about power. And he lives in a world with other people where power is understood as being the ability to control and dominate a person, place, or event. That's the dictionary definition. And out of that belief, that's how we behave, and that's how we understand what is real. So if I'm in a room with another fella and he has power, then I don't, because he is able to control me and dominate me. Or vice versa. If I have power, I'm able to control him and dominate him, and then he doesn't have power. Conflict is understood to be a situation where there's a contest between two or more people that's going to have a winner and a loser. So the same picture with a fellow, and we're in conflict with each other, then it's being defined by whether he's winning and I'm losing, or whether I'm winning and he's losing. And that's the view of the boy. And most of the time, adults are caught up in living in that scenario because they're trying to get the boy to do something. And so the boy experiences, you're trying to get me to do something, you're trying to control me, you want to tell me what to do. If I do that, you win and I lose. I'm not going to do that. Because everything is about this conflict is really about control and winning. Love we understand as a sense of warmth and affection for another person. But what happens with power and conflict, as we understand it, is that it's gone. If you're in a power struggle and conflict with another person, with a teenage boy, your sense of warmth and affection is gone. And certainly his sense of warmth and affection is nowhere visible. And this scenario goes on and on and on, over and over and over again. And it creates all kinds of frustration and misery, and for the boy. What's being called for here, and what the boy is actually developmentally ready for, is a higher, more enriched, mature understanding of power, conflict, and love. And developmentally, we're meant to move to that. We are truly meant to move to that. Where power is not control and domination of a person or place or event, but power is actually the ability to manage oneself, to operate out of one's own authority, to really control and manage oneself. That's what we want for the boys. We want them to develop that ability to manage themselves. And that's what they're looking for. And conflict is when there's two or more forces coming together in relationship to each other, creating the possibility for something new and different to take place. This is happening in nature all the time. And the richer sense of love is the sense of warmth and affection that stays present for everybody that's involved all the time. And this is what the boys are looking for. Now, I'm going to pause my speaking right now. And what I'd like to do is show you a little video clip that physically demonstrates what I'm talking about. So hold on just a minute while I go to do this. Am I going to open, John?
Double click. Down. Down one.
Right there.
Double click.
Okay.
It should play.
Should.
What's it say?
Do you want to stop playing the video? Will that borrow you from the one? Just take a second. Well, yeah, come on right here. Let me show you what I mean, and I'll go back to the voice. No. I want you to grab my wrist. And put your left foot back just a little bit so you look balance.
You can resize your screen if you need to, if you can't.
So Williams grabbed my... What's that, please?
Oh, I was just telling them that they could resize the screen if they can't see it well.
Okay, so the video was showing? Lynette?
Yes, the video was showing.
Go back to that.
Okay, thank you. Can I borrow you from the one? Thank you.
Yeah.
Just I want you to grab my wrist. And put your left foot back just a little bit so you look balance. I got to make sure I'm touching this table. So Williams grabbed my wrist, a little tighter, so I've got some a little tighter. So he's done this. He's grabbing. So I go like, I'm pulling back, and what is William doing? He's locking down, right? He's got me. I don't want him to have me. So I pull this way. What do you feel like doing, William, when I pull? What's your neck? That's right. Go ahead. No one's going to get hurt. We're just going to have some fun. So he pulls me. I don't want him to pull me. So I pull back this way. What do you want to do? Right. So I'm going to pull this way. This is your typical argument, like this. And this is, I don't want to lose, so and I'm doing the pulling away, the fleeing part of fight, flee, because it's much better to demonstrate this way than me coming in and punching. We don't need to do that. Great. So this is the back and forth. What they're looking for is this. When they hit 14, grab me so you mean like you're going to hold. Don't pull it. Just lock me down right there. Right. He's got me locked real tight. See my hand getting red? If I tighten my hand up, you tightened up. The instant all I did was close my hand. And that communicated to him, non-verbally, resistance. Resistance to his force
You all know basic physics. If there's resistance to force, well, you get more force.
Here?
Now, every 8-year-old boy knows this. When they hit 13 and 14, there's nothing more to learn from this. So they just keep playing to see if they'll dance their dance with them. Lockdown. Right there. What they're looking is this. I'm not going to do it, am I? I'm not. The key to let go. In what direction am I facing? I wonder what's going on with William. He's grabbing my wrist. This is a physical demonstration of win-win. Now everybody says, yeah, what if you turn around and tries to punch you in the face? You know, or something like that. The fundamental doesn't change because what happened, let me have you for a moment. What's going on here is when he grabs me, the instant I do this, in the real world of boys, he's won, I've lost. You see how you're nodding your head?
Yeah.
He's won because he got the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
He's won because he got the reaction, he's got the resistance. He goes, oh, I got rowdy.
That's right.
Okay? Now, I mean, turn around, pull out a gun and shoot him then, but in that instant, he's won. I don't really mean that. Make sure you edit that. Okay? It's all over at that point as far as the boy's concerned because he's got the reaction. This is your typical bully thing. Bullies behave the way they do because they're looking for the response from their quote-unquote victim. I teach the boys I work with and the girls sometimes how to not have that response, and the bully stops bullying because it doesn't work. Boys are very practical. So the instant I go like that, I've communicated my losing. Because what I've lost is my own center of gravity, my own confidence, my own I'm reacting. William's got my wrist, I got to get away. My brain is there. Okay? It's locked down. Same grab. Nice and tight. But I'm not resisting, I'm nice and relaxed. My center of gravity stays here, so I move to a position from my center of gravity where I'm lined up with William. Let's go. I'm not jerking my hand out, nothing. He just simply releases because it's a better solution to that situation. Thank you.
There it is.
All right.
Stop. Lose that.
Close this
Yep. And go back.
here.
Go to webcams and see if that. Click it. No. Try that.
With your
Try
finger.
that X. Nope.
Now what?
I don't know. Show my screen. Let me get Jay.
Hang on, folks, I'm coming. Trying to get my face back here. Some of my tech guys are trying to figure this out. I'm going to keep talking to you. So I want to repeat that what the boy needs to develop into the young man is he needs to engage and relate with adults who model these qualities in order for him to develop them himself. So work with so parents and adults can embody these qualities of power, conflict, and love so their actions come naturally from them, where they learn to manage their inner and outer space. They learn how to speak with inherent warmth and authority with as few words as possible, and they learn what to say in order to be effective. This changes everything with the boys. Here I am.
Okay, back.
I'm back. That's an introduction to the dynamics of power, conflict, and love. I'm going to move to purpose, mission, and dreams. Years ago when I was a school teacher, in the teacher's lounge, it was common conversation for people to be talking about how we motivate the students, how we try this, try this, try that. And I'd sit there thinking, you don't have to motivate anyone to do something that he really wants to do. And that was the seed of what came to me later with the boys, that the heart of every boy is a dream, at least one dream. I'm not talking about a sleeping dream. I'm talking about when he's sitting around bored, he's sitting around in school, in his imagination, he's thinking about something that he'd like to do, something he'd like to try, something he imagines himself becoming and being. And generally, this is invisible to everyone. Sometimes it's even invisible to him. Depending on the conditions of his life, he might keep this dream so far down that it's even hidden from him. But it doesn't change the fact that every boy carries a dream. It is often the last thing he's going to reveal to an adult. And it certainly will not become visible as long as the kind of tug-of-war, win-lose games, conflicts are going on between he and adults. He is simply not going to show it under those conditions. Why does this matter? Why is it important? Because his dream is the seed. It's connected to his purpose. And for a male, his purpose in being is fundamental. It can take a long time for it to reveal. But the dream in a teenage boy is the seed. It's the beginning stage of his purpose. And it's what drives him forward into life. And for him, this is a necessity. What the boys tell me is that when they're sitting around in school and their attention's not on what's going on, or at least partial it is, they're imagining themselves skateboarding, basketball, downhill skiing, taking a road trip, being a musician. The list of things is endless. There was a boy I worked with a number of years ago who was a challenge in school and at home, and I was interested in what his interest, what his dream was. And he didn't want to talk to me. As I said, it's about the last thing they want to tell grown-ups. So finally one day he shouted, "You want to know? You want to know what I'm interested in? You want to know?" And I went, "Yes." "Aviation, airplanes, helicopters, aviation. But I'm never going to be able to have my dream come true because I'm never going to be able to be a fighter pilot because I'm nearsighted." And I looked over and I said, you know that there's a state-supported university in Michigan where you can get a bachelor's degree in aeronautic engineering and graduate with a license as a pilot. And it stopped him dead cold. He said, "Really?" I went, "Yeah, I've got a friend who's just graduated. In fact, just a little while ago, he flew over the neighborhood, He said, "I want to go to school there." I'm talking about Western Michigan University. It's one small example, and I could give you many, many examples. Every boy has a dream. And what's important is for that dream to become visible and for him to engage with adults, particularly as parents, where he can step into the path of what I simply call making dreams come true. Once knowledge of the beast is understood and it's integrated, and once the dynamics of power, conflict, and love are embodied, the stage is set for exploring and developing with a boy his dream and how to make that dream come true. So I've learned there's 4 steps to making dreams come true. The first is investigating, defining the dream. And it goes fairly simply. Once the warfare, once the fighting, once the conflicts have eased and the relationships are different, sitting side by side, you begin the inquiry. So what do you dream about? What do you imagine doing? And you may not get an answer right away. It might even take a while. But with patience and openness and curiosity and unequivocal affection, it'll come out. Because a teenage boy loves and needs to be listened to. If he feels he can be listened to and taken seriously, because they all tell me how they're not taken seriously, and more often than not, they are correct, he will talk. Once the dream is in place, let's say the dream is to become a good guitar player. I'll use musician. I want to be a really good guitar player. I've got a 13-year-old talking with me about that right now. Then you develop the roadmap. Develop a roadmap. This is where he is now, and this is where he wants to be. This is where he wants to go. What Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is, you start with the end in mind. So he has a clear image of where he is and where he wants to go, and begin from that to move backwards from the end to the beginning. And all he has to do is start where he is and take the next step. Years ago, I had I think he was 12, 13-year-old boy talking about, and I hear this a lot from the boys now, because if They engage in something, or they think about engaging in something, and they don't think that they're going to be great at it and perfect at it. Immediately they stop, because they're not given the opportunity to understand the sense in their body of how you move along the path. Now, we can talk to them about it till we're blue in the face, but talking doesn't work. So with this boy, I laid a number of things down on my office floor and discussed it in terms of how I earned a black belt. I didn't walk into a dojo and get handed a black belt. And I didn't know how to get a black belt. But my teacher had taken so many people to black belt. He knew how to do it. And all I had to do was follow his instructions. And his instructions were prepare for the very first thing. And so it was one belt after another after another. And that gave this boy a visual, physical sense of how you move from one thing to another. He's now a college graduate. So the roadmap gets developed. And the next step is following and evolving the map, because all maps in life are not straight lines. And you don't just move from spot to spot to spot like you're driving a car and going. Although often when I go off in a car, I go off this way and I go off that way. There's movement, and then there's challenge, there's obstacles, there's difficulties, there's reevaluations. So the map gets changed. But he's doing it. He's discovering it, and he's facing the challenges, and he's learning how to overcome these things to move forward. And the last thing is completing, making the dream come true, or, which is just as important, getting so far and stopping. Sometimes the stopping is a quitting. Sometimes the stopping is, you know what, this dream is not, I don't have this dream anymore, or it's not that important to me anymore. And that's the end. And that's fine. Because everything he's done up until this point is what he's acquired, what he's developed, what he's claimed. The boy's job is to identify and define the dream and to make it come true, to do the work, is how we would put it. The parents and the other adult's job are to support his making the dream come true. And support is being there as an adult role model, and sometimes, actually really quite often, helping him to connect with other people, especially other men who have made that dream come true, who he can see that this is possible and learn from them on how you go from here to there. Investigating and defining the dream, developing the roadmap, following and evolving the map along the way, completing the dream, or dropping the dream. So as he grows, he's developing strength, he's developing confidence, he's developing maturity, and a sense of his own embodied accomplishment. It's his, it's no one else's. And this is the big shift that begins to move, the transition from doing for approval to doing for self-satisfaction. And doing for approval and being in approval-type relationships with adults to moving to being in relationships with adults where what he's receiving I call blessing. So now I haven't looked up to see if we have any questions. The field is open. I want to leave the rest of the time to answer questions for you. So, does anybody have a question? Apparently no questions. Or there's no questions appearing. Lynette, are you there? Can you type something so I know that this is even working? Oh, I can hear something. Talking to it.
I just unmuted everyone, so maybe if somebody has a question, they can just ask it. But I had a question, and that question is, how do you really start to engage your child to kind of be thinking about those things? So like you said, this young man who had this goal of being, you know, a pilot, how do you engage young people to talk? Because parents often tell me that in their office, or when I ask questions in my office, a parent will sit back and say, oh yeah, I want to hear the answer to that question too.
Okay. For a boy to give the answer to that question, Lynette, he's got to feel absolutely safe. And it might sound very strange, but most of the time the boys don't feel safe in a very particular way. They don't feel like what they say is going to be taken seriously. So I've learned in order for the boy to open up with what he's imagining and what he's dreaming about, that all this stuff about arguing and fighting and the kind of conflicts I talked about in the beginning, that has to disappear. And I can't say that enough because they simply won't start talking about what's really important to them. Let me give you a really solid example. I worked with a boy a number of years ago. His grades were poor. He had an IEP because he had learning disability and he had physical disabilities. And his parents brought him to me because when he got confronted in his IEP meeting about his poor grades, he became depressed. So parents brought him to me. We worked together for a while, and he was appeared to be improving, focusing on school, focusing on his grades. That's what we were talking about. Things were looking real good. His next set of grades came in. Guess how his grades were? Want to take a guess? Go ahead. How do you think his grades were? Anybody there?
Anybody can talk.
His grades were terrible. No change whatsoever. His parents blew up. Teachers were all upset. Comes into my office. He's sitting in front of me expecting me to give him some kind of lecture, I think. And I had no idea where this came from. But I looked at him and I said, what's it like to lie to the people you love the most? And his head had been down like this. He looked up at me and he said, Ted, I'm a very private person. And I listened. He said, there's some things on my mind that I don't tell anybody about. I went, okay. And this boy has cerebral palsy, so he has a lot of trouble moving physically. He said, my parents love me a lot and I've grown up in a very good home. And I'd like to someday be able to have a home of my own, and I'd like to be able to get married, but who's going to date me? What girl's going to even look at me? How am I going to be able to get a job and support myself? And he's fine. And I'm listening going, of course, this is perfectly understandable. And I said, will you let me help you with this? So that's a good example of the masterfulness of teenage boys to distract and deceive adults all the time from what's really going on with them. So when you ask the question, how do we get them to talk to us? Well, just the whole idea of trying to get them to do anything, they experience as you're trying to control them, you're trying to get them to do it. They see that as a win-lose thing, and they're not going to do it. That's simple. The whole trying to get them that we feel has to go and be replaced by a kind of interest and curiosity and love that is open and receptive as opposed to trying to get him. When that's present, and that's present quite consistently, the boy will open up and start talking. In fact, the boy will start talking most when the grown-ups start talking less. The boys have taught me that they're not going to talk. In fact, why bother talking? Because the adults are talking all the time, telling them what to do, trying to help them, trying to get them to do this, so they're getting unlimited amounts of attention without having to change anything that they do. For 30 years, I've watched radical change take place in families by one simple thing. The adults talking less. In fact, shutting up almost. Not out of coldness, not out of, I don't want to talk to you because I'm mad at you, but just simply turn off the flow of the words so there's this space there. The boy needs his parents very much. He needs the connection. He doesn't have to do anything to get the connection when the adults are doing all the talking. When the adults stop doing all the talking, the boy will step forward. He may not do it on the first day, but without fail, in 30 years of talking to adults about this, every single time an adult has done this, a parent has done this within days, a week, 2 at the absolute most, the boy is talking. And if the adult will listen and not just jump in and start talking again, the boy will open up. That was a long answer to your question.
No, that was a great answer.
Truth. Next question. I have everybody mystified. Understanding what power, conflict, and love are, and how they are present for a teenage boy, and how much he wants to be able to learn how to come into his own power, and how he uses conflict as a way of communicating, we need to change, and how he's trying through conflict to communicate. I need adults to model for me what it is to be adult, how you do this, so I can imitate, have it in my imagination, and ignite the parts of me that will develop into this. When that's present, they grow up. I've watched it happen over and over and over again. Yes, go ahead, question? Lynette, do you have another question?
I do.
Go ahead.
So, okay, so can you give an idea, exercise, suggestion? So that was great to kind of stop talking less. But what about if you're trying to help your child learn that they're capable and to build some of that self-confidence?
Okay. If you're trying to get your child to learn, your boy to learn that he's capable and self-confident, it's not going to work. Sorry to say. Because you're trying to get him to do something. So I know I'm repeating myself, but it really bears repeating, because you're trying to get him to do something, even if it's to have confidence, he's going to experience it as you're trying to get him to do something, he's not going to do it. So here's a very good starting point. I said earlier, all boys want to play, and all boys want to be strong. And they usually think of strength as physical strength, and there's a whole lot that focuses on that. But it's way more than that. So you think about confidence and capability as a form of strength. Okay? Then imagine just as a point that in spite of impressions, he wants to be confident. He wants to experience capability. Excuse me. Because he wants to be stronger. If you start off with that as an assumption, then it's the question of how does he develop it? How does he develop it?
Oh, we've kind of lost your audio for just a second.
Boys want to integrate because they want to have that sense of strength. Where they get tripped up is in how do I do this and not. So when I'm working with the boy, I start with, are you happy with the grades? I don't try to get him to do anything. I just want to know for himself how satisfied he is. And truly, without fail, if their grades are low, they're not satisfied. So my next curiosity is, okay, what would you like it to be? And they're going to tell me. And I might even go through class by class what it is that he wants in that class. then the third thing after identifying what he wants is if I can be useful to him, I'm going from where he is now to where he wants to go, would that be good for him? So that I'm seeing, again, his dream of having a different set of grades. And my job is to serve him to go from where he is to where he wants to go. And that is a very different model than trying to get him to do better or trying to get him to see that he's capable and confident. And most of the time, Lynette, the trying to get him to do or trying to get him to see something is a lot of talking. And boys, as a general rule, they don't learn from being talked to. Boys learn from reality, from experience, from what they're doing, and from what happens to them in relationship to what they're doing. So if we're trying to get them to see that they're capable and confident by talking to them, their usual attitude is, yeah, well, that's what you think, but, you know, I know different. Begin with the assumption he wants to feel more capable, he wants to feel more confident, and he's lost with about how to do that. That answer your question and get it started?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, I have a whole model that I work with boys called School as a Game. And I do it because lots of boys, school doesn't make sense to them. I mean, they understand the story that go to school, get good grades, go to a good college, and get a good job. They've been told that. So they understand that in the sense that they're informed. What I mean is inside their own bodies, it doesn't really make sense to them. And a lot of what goes on at school doesn't make sense.
Like that. He's coming out one day.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to have him look at
The model I use at School as a Game creates an understanding of the boy of looking at school like the games that he plays, whether it's a sports game, whether it's a video game, a board game, doesn't matter. An understanding is a game that has a purpose and has goals. And if you want to win at the game, if you follow these rules and develop your skills, just like you would in any game, you're going to win. And you get to define what winning is for you based on what it is that you want your grades to be or what you want your outcome to be. I once with a boy who came in, he was a sophomore in high school, and he had a 1.7 grade point average. And he didn't want to be in the office with me. He said, oh, I had counseling before, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, what do you want to do after high school? And he said, well, I want to go to this technological university, and you know, it was Michigan Tech. And I said, well, you won't get in with a 1.7. And he said, no, I got to have like over a 3 point. And I said, this is a dream. And I said, if I can be of value to you to go from your 1.7 to the 3.1 or 3.2 that you need in order to go to Michigan Tech, would that be useful? He said, yes. And off we were running. This is, again, like that's his dream. The roadmap got built, and he started on the road, and there was all kinds of obstacles because the boy had to change. He had to stop being lazy. He had to stop procrastinating. He had to stop blaming the teacher. He had to stop doing all kinds of stuff. But he really wanted to go to Michigan Tech, and he graduated high school with a 3.1 and was accepted to Michigan Tech.
Ted, you have a question in the question box.
Okay, let me take a look at it. Ideas for encouraging them to participate and be involved in activities without the feeling of having to win. Well, without the fee. Can you write a little more, like what kind of activities are we talking about? Because see, I come at this backwards from this. I want to know what is it that he wants to do, instead of trying to encourage him to do something. So let me have a little bit more, if maybe I can be helpful. Sports. Encouraging them to participate without having to win. Well, but the whole purpose of sports is, well, it's to win and to have good sportsmanship. So are you talking about developing good sportsmanship? Give me a little more, please. Waiting.
They wrote in their writing or running, and they can talk. I mean,
okay.
They're unmuted, so they could talk if they'd like.
They wrote in there running. Okay.
Well, then they wrote racing, but not to win. And I can kind of give a little bit of I think what they're saying there is in, especially when kids run cross country, a lot of times there'll be 200 kids running.
Yes.
And you know what? A lot of kids who are running, they're not running to win. They're running to beat their own score, or their own best time, or that kind of thing. But
okay.
For the kid who wants to win the race every time, it can be somewhat defeating.
Okay, so for the kid who wants to win the race every time, he's got a genuine real-world conflict, okay? Because he's caught between he wants to run, he wants to win, but the reality is he's not going to win every time. Now, he's got two options. He can stop running and say, well, I can't win every time, so I'm not going to do this. And he could do that, and he would stop running. He could also face his conflict and say, I'm not going to win every time, so what am I going to gain from this if I don't win? What else can I do? What else is there for me? And begin to develop that attitude and that feeling in his body, and really that dream and that goal. So what I would encourage you to do as a parent is, first of all, if the conditions exist where you can have a conversation with him, where he will truly open up, where he will talk from his heart what's his real truth, as opposed to telling you what he thinks you want to hear, and or playing a game with you that's just going to be, here we go around the mulberry bush, which is what's happening most of the time. If you can engage with a conversation with him where he will open up and talk from his heart, and you can listen to that, then you can invite him and say, what more can you get? What more is there for you? What else can you walk away with that for you is going to be of value? What else is going to be a challenge for you? What else can you gain that when you're done, you feel like you've accomplished something? And that's what I suggest you do. Another question.
Oh.
This is Mark. Hold on. Okay.
I have a question.
My question is, hold on, I just lost it. Margaret, can you go back? I didn't get the beginning of it, or speak it out loud for me, please. Because the text changed before I could read the whole thing. Tune in now that you're ready to change and sit back and listen rather than just always doing the talking, telling, etc. Sorry. We got two little boys here. One of them just got hurt.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead and let's see if I can come back to Margaret later. What's your question?
Okay. I think the way you explained the power, conflict, love dynamic is so accurate. I've got teenage boys, and that's exactly what's going on. What is the quickest, I don't want to make it quick, I know it's a process, but what have you found to be the most effective way to turn that dynamic around? Because we are right in the middle of it right now. And
okay.
So would love any tips or suggestions that you have that are effective in turning that around.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to give you a quick rundown, but it's simple, but it's developmental, and it takes time. Okay. But the foundation of it, as I said, is understanding that the whole notion of power and conflict and love has to move from the old conventional one to this richer one. And you, as mom and dad, have to learn how to embody that. And the beginning point is actually taking the attention off of the boy and moving it onto you. Taking the attention off the boy and moving it onto you in a very, here's a concrete, simple way. He's doing something and you don't like it. The conventional thing is you're going to tell him you don't like what he's doing, and you're going to try to get him to change. You're going to try to get him to stop. He's going to have an argument with you, whatever it is. The shift is something like, not something like, the shift is, I can't do all the body stuff for you, but you saw the video. So out of that body stuff, the shift is, that doesn't work for me. You make it about you. That's not working for me. And he might give you a lot of grief and noise. But if you stay with it being about you and what's acceptable to you and what's not, and it's not working for me, That's a piece of it. Another piece of it, which is fundamental, is learning how to train your own body on the inside to move to calm, relaxed, accepting, empathic. And that if you're not in that place, because you have to come first so that you can be effective with your teenage son, you remove yourself from the situation if you're not in that place. So you feel yourself getting tense and stressed, you just say, you know, it's not working for me, and you exit the stage. And in exiting the stage, you do whatever is necessary for you to move from whatever stress level you're at back to a state of being calm, relaxed, grounded, centered, empathic, and affectionate towards yourself and towards your boy. So that your boy does no longer has the feeling that he can light your fire. He can push your button and you're going to wind up, which is what he thinks he can do. And out of that body state, then you can control for yourself the physical distance between you and your boy. Why is that important? The truth is 75% of what goes on between a boy and adult is physical. We focus on the words, on the content. He's not focused on that at all. He's focused on the physicality of what's going on because he's a boy and he's measuring strength. Okay? So if he's used to you being this close to him, you want to not move back. Move where you're comfortable. Keep comfortable all the time. You're not comfortable, do what you got to do to get comfortable so that you're staying as much as you possibly can in a comfortable, relaxed state. And what's happening then for him is he's no longer getting the experience that he can control what's going on the inside of you. Okay? And out of that comfortable inside state and you controlling the physical distance between you and he, then how you speak to him is out of that body state. Calm, centered, relaxed, affectionate, and firm, meaning with authority about what it is for you. And you speak to him with as few words as possible. I mean, if you can get your message across in 3 words, use 3 words, not 50. Because every word out of your mouth is a unit of attention to him. It's a unit of love. And he's shoving them in his pocket like $10 bills, and all he has to do is be a dweeb, and the attention flow just turns right on. No, 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 no. And that's how you talk to him. And then what you say, you're the subject of the sentence, not him. Because it's about you and what's acceptable and what your expectations are and not what you're trying to get him to do. And that's a very quick summary of the model that I've used with parents and adults, teachers, counselors, school principals, law enforcement people, over and over again. It turns things around with what happens with teenage boys.
Thank you. That was really helpful. I appreciate the detail.
You're welcome. So are we ending, Lynette?
Okay, I'm going to give a 3-minute, I just have a couple of things I want to talk about, and then if you'll just stay on with me, let's see if we'll let anybody who's done go, and then if there's a person who hangs on who might still have a question, is that okay? Yeah,
because before you do that, I want to tell people how they can get more.
Thank you.
Okay? And how you can get more is go to www.boysworkproject.com. That's the new website for the Boys Work Project. There's lots of information there. There's how to get materials, what kinds of programs we offer, how to reach me. www.boysworkproject.com. My phone number is 586.
Stop. Just 1 second. I can't seem to type in my chat box. Can you type in yours and send it out to everyone, okay? So the website, then tell us your phone number and type it in too.
Let's see if I can do that. www.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. I just wanted to make sure everybody could get it. She put it in the chat box and then everybody could just click on it in all honesty.
How do I click on this thing, John?
Send.
Right there. Bingo.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, now I cut you off. Go ahead.
I was giving information on how people can contact the Boys Work Project, reach me, in order to get more of what we talked about tonight. So www.boysworkproject.com. boysworkproject.com, 586-825-6483. Our office is in Royal Oak. We've been there for a long time. I've lost track. Okay, Lynette, what did you want to do?
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ted. Just hang on. That way, if somebody else wants to ask a question, maybe they'll ask at the end, or they'll put it in the chat box now.
Okay, thanks.
I want to tell everyone who attended, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This was our best attended webinar. And by the way, we were way, way, way above what typically for people registered, people who came on. So this was a topic I think people were really interested in and they made time for. So I appreciate that. And with that, we just started these success series topics on Thursdays. We're trying to do 2 a month. And so if any of you who are on have a particular topic you would like us to address, we can look to see if we can find someone who would address those issues. Just please let us know. You can write us an email or something like that. We're finding that they're very interesting. The only rule we're kind of using is it's something we would like it to be topics that are very useful and helpful for families of teenagers. So if you would like, or if you know a speaker, we're very, open to having different speakers come on. Please watch for upcoming events. These are different than the programs we do in our office to help students get ready for college. Those are for our clients. These are open to anyone. So if it says Success Series webinar, you get an email and you see that it's a topic that you have a friend that you think might really enjoy this topic, you can share it with them. So it isn't open to just our clients. That being said, my small commercial or short commercial is we do work with high school students, getting them ready for the college admissions and financial aid process. We like to meet students earlier in the high school process than later. For students who are going to be class of 2015, it's a critical time. If they haven't really started the college process, they need to start immediately, because if they're trying to find as much money as possible, every day, and I really mean every day that goes by for the next month or so, is probably going to cost them money. So if you would like to know more about my office and what we do, we offer free classes and free webinars that kind of talk about that. We have a free class in my office on July 23rd. You can register at our website or just call my office or email Susan or I, and we can help with that. And we're pretty proud. This year, our graduating class, 2014, we had 53 seniors, and they earned over $11 million in scholarship money. So if you'd like to learn how to, get that kind of scholarship money for your kids, come to one of our free information sessions. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ted, and I appreciate everyone who came. If you're done, you're welcome to leave, but if you'd like to ask a question, you're welcome to stay on.
Thank you.
People stay on because they're hoping someone else will ask a question that would be useful to them. But if you don't ask a question, we can't answer it. Well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, Ted. We did get a few comments. Thank you very much for everyone. If you do want to give us a little bit of feedback, just throw it in your chat box. We'll leave it open for a couple more minutes so we can see if you gave us any feedback. Have a nice evening. Everyone, please have a safe 4th of July.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Ted, could you do me a favor? can you
Yep.
go into, I seem to have lost my, it's there, I can see it, but I don't have any control over it. It says I do, but can you go and click on my name, right click on my name?
It says Lynette was made, you are no longer, okay, what do you want me to do?
I want you to make me the organizer.
Where do I do that? Lynette, hold on.
You click on my name and you right click on my name.
Where where am I going to find your name?
Oh, in the above the chat box, do you see my name in there?
Yep, okay, there it is. Draw. Presenter has control. Click to mute. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Yes, it says, where do you want me to, organizer. It says I'm the organizer right now, and you want me to click on your name?
Yes. Right click on it.
I'm using the right button. Okay. Lynette, organizer. Is it working now?
I don't know. No. I can't seem to get that to work at all. I certainly hope I'm afraid to shut it because...
It says Lynette, I right click, it says
Oh,
Lynette.
can you go up to the top? Do you see can you see where it says stop recording? It says show my screen and there's a red box that says stop recording.
No, we don't have that.
I don't have that. I have a start recording.
Okay, you know what? I want you to log off, I think, and let's see what happens.
There is a change presenter. You want me to change presenter?
Yes, change presenters. Let's try that. Do you also have change organizers?
Has change presenters. Has Kim Beringer, Michelle Donders, Ted Browdy.
And it doesn't give you my choice, huh?
No.
Just log off. Just kill.
Where am I killing it, John? On the X
Over
up
to
here?
the left.
Yeah.
There. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
That work?
I don't know. I won't know until you're off.
I can still hear you.
Dragon Gaming.
I know. It's like it's there, it's running, but I have no control over it. I can't touch anything, so I can't stop the recording. And I'm afraid I'm going to lose. I don't want to lose the recording.
Okay, I'm going to click on end meeting.
Do that.
That's interesting. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
No.